Hey guys, we are here today in Valheim, taking a look at 5 basic things you can do to improve the decoration and the interior of your buildings. Whether you're someone who's just gotten into Valheim, or you've been playing for a while, but you just don't care about the building system or don't have a lot of time to put into it, hopefully this video can help you add some life and some character to your base or your buildings without too much time investment or resources. Each of these tips might not work for every building you do, and they might not be applicable to every situation, but hopefully you'll be able to take at least a couple things from this video and turn your empty and basic interior into something like this. The first thing that I would do to the interior of a building to add some life to it is to add rafters. Now, it doesn't matter if you're adding core wood rafters to try and mix up the look a little bit, or if you want to keep with theme and just add the rafters that match your building style. But adding some rafters to the ceiling and dropping it down a little bit gives it a little bit more depth and can go a long way into making it look a bit more realistic. Now, whether you run these rafters across the entire building in whatever design you choose, or if you choose just to run rafters every now and then in certain spots, it can really add some life to your building and can be tailored to your own preferences and likes on how much resources and time you want to put in. Now, this next thing I would do does not apply to early game bases when you only have access to wood. But as you progress through the game and you acquire more and more materials, I would try and stop building the entire building in the same material. It can really go a long way to mix up your floor pieces with different styles just to kind of breathe some life into it. It doesn't really matter what form this takes or what you design, just mix up the patterns a little bit. Throw in some black marble and some stone flooring to kind of split the whole room up, and it can give it some real life. It doesn't really matter what pattern you do, as long as you can break up the floor into different styles, it can really bring your place to life and make it seem like you put in a lot more effort than you actually did. It can also help to break up your different floor patterns by adding little seam edges to any of the wood sections you do, or even throughout some of the wood sections, and cutting through them in order to make the floor look like it has seams going through the whole thing and edges. This might not be for everyone, and it kind of makes you have a little bit of a step up when you cross over it, but in certain builds it can really break up the monotony and give it a little bit of a nicer look. Another thing that can work great on floors, especially if you want to separate off a particular room, is to use lox rugs to create carpet. If you overlap them and pay attention to how you're placing them, you can carpet an entire floor with them and make it look like the entire thing has a completely different floor on it than the basics that the game gives you. If there's any open areas throughout it, that you can even run them overlap the opposite direction to cover even more and make it look like you have shag carpet inside your building. This works really good on wood flooring, and like I said, if you do it in a room that is completely separated and walled off, you can make it look like you have laminate or hardwood floor inside one room, and then it goes in a carpet inside of another. This next tip is not at all for efficiency and actually takes up more room in your building than you need to, but can really make it pop if you're willing to take out some room in your building in order to add some neat decorations. What I would do is I would take little wood pieces, like 1x1 floors, 1x1 walls, and I would make little pantry openings that are about 2 meters wide and maybe 2 meters high. These will only pop off 1 meter off the wall if you're using the 1x1 pieces. And then what you can do is take shutters and close off the fronts, making yourselves little pantries. Now, when you open these pantries, the doors will go inside of themselves, but they will still operate. If you don't care to keep them closed and you'd rather them look better, then you can go to the side of it and open the shelves to the outside, and the doors will pop out, and you can just leave them open and make them look like they're being used. Now, inside these pantries, you can throw in chests, and that will allow you to have your storage look like it's a little bit more deliberate, even though it is not quite as space efficient. And like I said, while this is not efficient on space saving, this can really make it seem like you're being very deliberate in your decoration and add some furniture to the room with very little materials. The next tip I have is simply to place things. It does not matter what form this takes, if it's cool looking weapons on the wall, if it's your old bronze axe, or some random shield. Place things on your walls. It really goes a long way to bring some life and some character to the place. And it's really not that hard. You already have the equipment. You're likely not going to get rid of the equipment in case you need backups in the event of a death. So you might as well utilize these spots by just hammering on some horizontal item stands or some vertical ones and placing items. This goes beyond weapons and gear and even goes to decorations on the table. place things on the table to bring some extra life to your build and make it look like you actually have things going on. Even when you place things poorly like I do here and don't even aim them right or care about where they go, it can really make it seem like this is an actual home and people are actually living here. This can go far beyond just decoration and look, and you can even use it with, say, the pantries I did earlier. Instead of using signs of saying what's in each chest, you can mark your things off by placing item stands above the chests, indicating what is inside of those chests, allowing you to have a nicer way to come and look at your items, and a more unique system for telling you what is inside each thing that you open. Although this isn't as clear-cut and simple as using signs, it can help you with the decoration purposes as well, and make it seem like you have things going on. Keep in mind that these item stands work with food, weapons, potions, and a lot of base ingredients like blueberries. And the fifth tip I have for you to increase how well your interior is decorated is again a not very efficient one, since the most efficient thing for crafting upgrades is to bury them under your floor to get them out of sight. But this tip is to actually utilize them and design things around these upgrades. If I'm going to place a tool shelf on the wall, don't just place the tool shelf there, but instead add some item stands underneath it and actually utilize it to hold a hammer or a butcher knife and add to that tool shelf and make it seem like there's even more going on with it. If your workbench is near an exterior wall, make sure you add in the building upgrades that are built around chopping wood outside and then put them next to your stacks of wood to make it actually seem like this is your area and station for cutting up wood and getting things ready to go into the fire. They still work to upgrade your workbench, and they can make it seem like the exterior is even decorated as well. Now you want to use this for all your different crafting stations, like your forge and your workbench upgrades, but also keep in mind that upgrades will stay in place after you have destroyed the workbench, which means you can place something like a forge and then place the anvils maybe next to like your stove or your oven along with a forge cooler, and then you can get rid of the forge after that, and they will simply be decorations, making this look more like a blacksmith place, especially if you have the oven going and you get some flames coming out. Even though the oven's a cooking item, these go to smithing, it really looks like a forge itself, and you can use these things as decoration items all by themselves without needing to use them as upgrades as well. Another neat thing you can do is you can place a cooking station and hang meat on it and let it go ahead and cook. Once it's done cooking, destroy the fireplace or the hearth from under it, and that meat will sit there on the cooking station and look like a drying rack where you're storing and preparing meat. You can use this in a separate building or in your main building to make it look like you have a meat processing area or a drying area to preserve things and to get some jerky ready. You'll be amazed how nice it'll look to add your extra poison and Rafters potions to item stands once you're not using them much and you move past those biomes, or taking the tons of extra gold you have and simply stacking that in a pile into the corner of your building or into its own room, and you'll quickly see how much life can be brought into your house by simply adding extra things laying around in chests and placing them around the room. Once you add very basic things like a bed and then banners into the room or fireplace into the center, you can see the transformation that can happen, again with just basic decoration things that you normally would do for comfort, and then these little tips that I've brought you today. Hanging things up on the wall, using crafting upgrades to stations as design and not just hiding them under a floor, placing your food, your gold, and your extra weapons around the room, changing the floor pattern, and designing pantries and things around your storage can really go a long way into making a build look a lot better and look like you know what you're doing, even though you put very little effort or time into it. If things don't line up around the room the correct way, or you can't get it exactly perfect, that's alright, because asymmetry actually goes with decoration really well, and you don't want things matching or lining up perfectly, because that's not as realistic and it doesn't look like someone actually lives there. When you live in a place, it is kind of a mess and does not match, and everything does not line up great. Hopefully this video can help you, whether you're new or you're someone who's just not very interested in the building and decorations of Valheim. Make your house and base look a lot more professional and look like someone actually lives there and cares about it, while allowing you to put very little time and resources into it. If you have any decoration tips yourself that you'd like to put in the comments for other players to use, please feel free to do so that we can all start living a much more fancy and comfortable life in Valheim. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.